Croeso to Wrexham News. I'm Carrie Harper.
I'm Marc Jones.
I'm Kayleigh Unitt.
And today we're going to be talking about some of the dynamics that are happening in terms of the Senedd election, which isn't far off now. May is just around the corner. And there was a really interesting news piece done by the BBC, who've been going around Wales, different parts of Wales, and talking to local people about how they intend to vote in May. And what's really interesting was the piece they did on Wrexham recently. And it's interesting because it tallies pretty much exactly with what some of the latest YouGov polling is telling us as well. So we're going to watch a little bit of that, and then we're going to have a chat about some of the dynamics that are at play.
But there are plenty on the left going or considering going in a different direction.
I've always been Labour, but I have occasionally voted Conservative, yeah.
And so you're a really interesting voter in this election. So which way will you go now?
I don't think I'd vote Labour again at the moment, no.
So on the left, a floating voter, you're turning your back on Labour. Are you considering Plaid or the Greens or the Lib Dems?
Certainly. I hadn't considered really voting Plaid before, but yes, I would consider it now.
I'm probably thinking Plaid because it's time for a change.
Why'd you say that?
But I just don't think Labour have done what Wales need.
Plaid, 100%, yes. I believe Wales should be run for the Welsh, by the Welsh. I believe Wales should be independent.
I'm undecided at the minute, but it'll be between Plaid Cymru. Well, it'll be Plaid Cymru.
That was a nice piece, wasn't it?
I love that fella at the end. Yeah, he thought about it for a whole 3 seconds. Nah, it's going to be Plaid Cymru.
Yeah, and it's not just mirroring the polls. It's mirroring what we're getting when we're out campaigning. You're seeing that switch. You know, people you talk to, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm voting Plaid now," or "I've voted Plaid for the past few years." I used to be a card-carrying Labour member, and I'm getting that
over and over and over again. I mean, I think what's interesting, we've seen for a while through polling that it's been looking like shaping up to be a two-horse race between Plaid Cymru and Reform, and there were Reform voters as well on that clip a little bit further on, just for balance. But what we've seen in the latest polling is that Plaid are moving ahead by quite a chunk. So the last YouGov poll put us on 37%, which was up 7 points since September. Reform down to 23%, whilst Labour fell to 10%. So we're seeing the trajectory is the same, but people are making their minds up because what experts think is that it's don't knows that are firming up, and more don't knows are actually coming over to Plaid Cymru as we get closer and closer to the election, which is really interesting. And I think some of the research also said that people see Reform as the most nightmare option for Wales, and I've got to say I'd agree with them as well, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even just that. The whole don't know and Labour. I've had so many conversations with previous Tory voters that are now going to vote Plaid.
really.
Yeah. We have members of our party, Mark, that used to vote Tory.
That's why it's good.
You had it, like younger people and stuff.
I think that's really interesting because there's a couple of different dynamics going on. So we know that in terms of the Plaid vote is going up because Labour voters are switching en masse over to Plaid Cymru. So some of it is about Labour voters switching, but there's also a large chunk that are younger voters, which is probably what you're talking about and what you would see on TikTok, for instance, where people are moving to Plaid because their identity is becoming more Welsh, is the easiest way to put it. They're more in favour of things like independence. They want Wales to have more control over decisions that impact our lives. So there's a couple of different realignments that are going on. But one thing's for sure, in May, politics in Wales is going to look drastically different than it does at the moment.
And this shouldn't be a shock to people because there was I can't remember, I think it was YouGov that came out on Plaid's 100th birthday when we were at the Eisteddfod, and that had a breakdown of, which party do you think is the most favourable and all of that. And it was really high in support of Plaid in a lot of areas. And like online, the shift I'm seeing is basically you get a bunch of people just spamming vote reform, but people who want to vote Plaid have conversations. They want to know more about the policies. They are taking an actual interest. And that shift that we're seeing in the youth vote is probably something to do with my parents voted this way, so I thought I'd always vote this way. And now they're seeing more political content on their feeds. They're starting to actually like change their mind, look into things, and we offer them something that resonates with them.
Do you know, you've hit on something really, really important there, though, and that is the difference between the conversation that you're seeing online and the conversation that's happening in real life on the doorstep. And I think, again, that's what's reaffirmed by that BBC clip, is online there is what looks like an avalanche of just vote reform, vote reform, vote reform comments. I mean, my Facebook page, which has been for donkey's years a Wrexham page, I've stood for the Senedd before, it's all Wrexham content, is absolutely inundated now by comments from people who are mainly South Wales, not even North Wales based, with just, you know, the vote reform nonsense. But so, you know, for anybody looking online who sees that, it's quite interesting to see that comparison. And we've seen it in Caerphilly as a perfect example, because, you know, polls are one thing, but that was a vote. And guess what? When it came down to it, more people decided that they wanted the more progressive option. So we've got that sort of juxtaposition, I suppose, with what people are seeing online and what's actually happening on the doorstep, which is fascinating.
The results were nowhere near as close as online made it out to be. Because it was neck and neck, and conversations of we're going to have a recount, and we didn't need it.
But it is interesting, the demographic, isn't it? You know, because we were down in Caerphilly campaigning for a couple of days, and you were seeing that younger vote was open, supplied. They'd already decided in some cases. And I think women as well, more likely to vote Plaid. So you've got, you know, and you don't want to stereotype the other side, but it does seem to be very much older men.
Yeah.
Angry older men. Let's be honest.
Judging by my Facebook comments, definitely.
I was going to say, this is just like a snapshot thing, but I posted a 7-second video that was literally just me trying to get people to understand that reform will just spread more division and hatred. 7 seconds. You would expect for like a 70,000 view video for it to have maximum 700 comments. It's got 1,700 and only 20 of them are positive. The rest of them are incredibly misogynistic. They're spamming vote reform, how much they love Nigel Farage. And my viewers are normally just over 50% women. That video is 68% men, and they're above the age of 50. It's
a swarm mentality, isn't it? And I know some of my comments are absolutely abusive.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of the content that they're posting, and obviously you can filter some of that out. But I mean, I've never seen. Well, first time I got involved in politics was 2008, and I've never seen anything like this in terms of the sort of vitriol and the tone online. It really is toxic at the moment.
Yeah, and that's putting people off. I think it's meaning that people don't post as often, perhaps, and because they don't want to get that grief, and it's really important that we do highlight that. Yeah. But they're obviously being driven. You know, these people aren't just finding your page from, you know,
no, you don't trip over a Wrexham page in Swansea, do you?
No, or you know, there's people posting from England.
Yeah, lots of that too.
So that either they're being driven there, they are being driven there by something, and you're just thinking this is reform not having any policies, so all they can do is negatively attack what they clearly see as the main opposition.
I think that's a real shame as well, because, you know, we're a couple of months off an election, a really important election. You know, the Senedd is in control of things like health, housing, education, things that impact people's everyday lives. And those are the topics that we should be talking about. And there's huge interest if you talk to people on the door or even online, anything that you raise in terms of health. There is so much engagement. People want to talk about what are we going to do about, you know, whether it's parking at the miler, GPs, not being able to access a dentist, A&E, you know, these are the conversations people want to have, but a lot of that is getting drowned out online because of this noise, which, you know, it's not particularly productive, I don't think. And it doesn't bear out in terms of the way people vote, if Caerphilly's anything to go by. But I think hopefully between now and May, we can start to move that conversation on a little bit, because people want to plan.
Yeah. And I think the difference is, you know, when somebody says to us, what's your plan for the economy? And we can say, go online, there's a 127-page economic plan. We can talk about, and we've talked about in this podcast with our health spokesperson, we've talked about our plan for health.
Yeah.
You know, very concrete issues, which we're very happy to talk about. If you ask Reform, and there was a radio clip of one of their main people released yesterday, what your plans are, well, we'll see when we get in. That's basically what it comes down to. It's like it's a big secret. But we know from their council, the way they've run councils in England, where they've said we're going to save millions from waste, they've realised there's nothing to cut.
I tell you what was interesting, that clip was from Llyr Powell, and he was asked in that interview, what is your stance, and then what is the new Reform leader in Wales' stance on abolishing the Senedd? Because a lot of your key spokespeople are clearly, members are in favour of abolishing the Senedd. And he said, basically, he didn't want to talk about that because it wasn't a devolved matter, which I thought was hilarious. You know, wait till somebody tells him about immigration. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, but that's the level that you're working with, which is a shame. It's a shame.
Well, you can't have a sensible conversation. That's the problem, because people will just shout, stop the boats or vote Reform. And that's, you know, these 3 words or 2 words in the case of vote Reform, that's a slogan. That's not a policy.
And it fixes bugger all, quite frankly. You know, that's the problem with it. It doesn't get you anywhere.
I think they're just trying to tire us out. And the thing is, like, this is my full-time job, to argue on the internet. So good luck to you.
I mean, that's Reform. I mean, the other point to talk about, I suppose, is what's been reflected in terms of Labour and the Tories as well, because this is sort of seismic for them. And again, the BBC clip reflected that, the polling's reflected that. The Labour vote has literally collapsed, and so has the Tory vote, hasn't it?
It feels like an extinction event, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that these 2 parties that have, well, in Wales, Labour's dominated Wales for 100 years. And all of a sudden, and we've been talking about this for a long time, when is this collapse going to happen? And I think we're actually witnessing it now. And it's really interesting to see how shallow their base has become.
Yeah.
They don't have any roots, and they seem to have given up for me.
I mean, in terms of the Senedd campaign, not really seeing a huge amount locally. And what makes me laugh is you hear all the time from usually the same type of bots online, oh, Plaid and Labour exactly the same. But I mean, on a local level, we've been sort of fighting tooth and nail on so many different issues for such a long time. And people know that, don't they? I mean, I'm just thinking local development plan in Wrexham, that was huge here. And people know that, don't they? So it's not going to ring true for people, is it? You know, that throwaway line.
No, exactly. And I think when it comes down to it, Plaid has been the opposition voice, the clear opposition to Labour for so long, holding it to account. And we're in a position now where we can be in government. I don't think we'll want to work with Labour, to be honest with you. You know, it's up to how the cookie crumbles in the actual election. But I don't see any way that we would want to work with Labour going forward, because they're a spent force.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, doesn't it? And I just hope that people can see through a lot of the dust that's being kicked up, particularly online at the moment. And it was just really reassuring for me to see through that BBC report that people seem to be. Yeah. So that gives you a bit of hope, doesn't it?
And those people aren't treating us like a protest vote.
No.
They're voting for something.
And that is key, isn't it? That people have something positive and progressive to vote for. Because if people don't feel invested in building the country going forward, then we may as well all pack up and go home. We need everybody involved in this, don't we, if we're going to build a nation. So, you know, generally things seem to be looking quite hopeful, I would say.
There's a lot of Reform voters or supporters online that are treating it like a protest vote of all politicians are terrible.
Anti-establishment.
Let's give Reform a go because there's something new. They're not. It's just regurgitated whatever Nigel's been up to for the last couple of decades. Like, there's nothing new there, and they've got all of these Tories coming over. They're just leaving their party in droves.
It's mass, isn't it, in terms of how many Tories have gone over to Tory MPs now? What did we say? Was it 27?
27, I think.
You're not talking about a couple of people.
I don't think that's all MPs though.
I
mean,
think
that's
that's
got to be like councillors or candidates.
I think that's mainly MPs.
Somebody local.
Definitely somebody local has gone over to Reform, yeah.
And that was so funny because, you know, I've got some big Reform fans on my timeline. And when it was unveiled that she joined Reform...
Sarah Atherton we're talking about,
Yes,
yeah,
Sarah
we should say who we're talking about.
I wasn't sure if I could say her name.
But when she was unveiled, you had some of these big Reform fans going, oh, I kind of fought for Reform now, you know? It really was a bit of a kick in the teeth, you know? Because she, you know, she sums up everything that's wrong with politics, really. She, you know, this is the woman that celebrated that McDonald's was reopening after COVID. Yeah.
Didn't quite get the local independent businesses message. No, not quite.
Wrexham Athletic.
Wrexham Athletic, yeah, people remember that one.
Finger on the pulse there.
But it's, you know, we can laugh, but it does get to the point where Reform just literally becomes Tories Mark II because so many people have jumped ship. And I think, you know, it's becoming just the online joke at the moment, isn't it? You know, and their new leader in Wales is a former Tory council leader from London as well. So it's just, everything just adds into that narrative. And obviously people roundly rejected the Tories, didn't they? You know, so I think a lot of people will find just that level of Tory involvement quite off-putting, I would assume.
And they're doubling down as well. This is not just the Tory party, Mark II. This is the Tory party on steroids.
Yeah, the worst of the Tory party.
Worst of the Tory parties in terms of individuals, but also policies. You know, they are out for the NHS. They are out to destroy public services. You know, they have got absolutely no interest in protecting people. The very people who will vote for them are going to be the people worst hit by them.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realise that.
No, and they're taking their inspiration from the US, you know, in terms of, you know, health and being open to insurance-based healthcare is one example. But then, you know, you look at what Donald Trump has opened the door to in the US. I just dread to think if these people got power here. So we have to do everything we can to give people a positive alternative, don't we?
Yeah. And I think ultimately that's why people from a Labour background are shifting to us in such big numbers. I think we reached the point where we're thinking, will the last Labour supporter please switch off the lights?